It started with a simple shower that turned cold halfway through. I was standing there, soap in my hand, when the pressure dropped like someone had opened a fire hydrant down the street. At first I figured the old submersible pump was finally giving up the ghost. That thing had been humming away in the well for 15 years, reliable as an old Ford pickup. But when I stepped out, still dripping, the gauge on the control box showed steady pressure. The pump was running fine. The water just wasn't making it to the house the way it should. That only happens when somebody else is pulling from the line. I live in Willow Creek Estates, a tidy subdivision on the edge of town in central Texas. Big lots, mature oaks, the kind of place where folks move to get away from city hassle but still want the lawns perfect and the mailboxes matching. We have an HOA, of course. Always have. Most people pay their dues, wave at the neighbors, and go about their business. Until Evelyn Whitaker got elected president 3 years ago. Evelyn was the type who believed the neighborhood's appearance was a direct reflection of her personal worth. She wore crisp blouses even to pick up the mail, spoke in that careful, clipped way people do when they've practiced sounding important, and had turned the monthly meetings into something resembling a military briefing. Under her watch, the community entrance got new brick columns, the common greenbelt got fancy irrigation, and the fines for everything from trash cans left out 5 minutes too long to unapproved flower pots started rolling in like clockwork. My well was my own private rebellion against all that. I drilled it myself back when the municipal water kept browning out during droughts. Cost me $12,000 and a lot of arguments with the wife, God rest her, who thought I was crazy. The neighbors chuckled at the time. Why bother, Tom? City's fine. But every time a boil notice hit or a main line broke, I smiled into my glass of clean, cold water. Until the greenbelt grass turned impossibly lush in the middle of a county-wide restriction. I started paying attention. My hose hadn't moved in 10 days. My electric bill for the pump was climbing anyway. Then the HOA email arrived, a polite warning about excessive outdoor water usage, with my address highlighted. That was the moment the pieces clicked. Late that night, I walked the fence line with a flashlight. About 40 feet from the control box, the soil looked freshly turned under the shadow of their decorative crepe myrtles. I got a shovel. Sure enough, a clean white PVC T-fitting, brand new, with a branch line heading straight toward the HOA sprinkler controller. They'd tapped my well like it was public property. The nerve. Next morning I photographed everything, measured distances, then sent the board an email. Looks like somebody hooked into my private well line. Can anyone clarify if I missed a community agreement? Evelyn replied within the hour. Dear Mr. Reynolds, the association recently approved a shared sustainability initiative. Your well, per the recorded easements in Article 6, qualifies as a community benefit resource. Your cooperation is appreciated. I laughed out loud in my kitchen. Easements? I pulled my deed from the safe. No utility easements. No water rights granted. Nothing. The well, pump, wiring, everything was mine, paid in full. I wrote back. No such easement exists. Remove the connection within 48 hours, or I'll have to involve the county. Her response was instant. The board voted unanimously to maintain the connection. Concerns may be raised at the next regular meeting. Classic. I didn't argue further. Instead, I drove to the hardware store in the next town over, bought a heavy brass gate valve, lockable handle, and a weatherproof enclosure. That evening, I installed it on their branch line, right on my side of the property line, boxed it up nice and neat, and snapped a padlock through the handle. From that moment on, I controlled their flow. 2 days later, Evelyn knocked on my door. She had that smile people use when they're trying not to scream. Mr. Reynolds, the landscapers are reporting inconsistent pressure. I smiled back. You mean on the line your contractor illegally tapped into my private well? Her lips thinned. The board manages community systems. You're obstructing shared infrastructure. Funny thing about that, I said, holding up a copy of my survey. The HOA boundary stops 2 feet short of my fence. Your shared system is on my land. Theft of service, last I checked. She stepped closer, voice low. The neighborhood's reputation depends on presentation. Brown grass hurts property values. We're simply maintaining standards. There it was. Control, dressed up as concern for the community. Then pay for the water, I said. We're not paying for a resource that should be shared. Then I guess the grass stays thirsty. That night, I closed the valve all the way. By morning, the greenbelt looked like straw. Sprinklers hissed dry air. Patches yellowed overnight. Evelyn sent an urgent infrastructure update, blaming a temporary pump malfunction. I almost felt bad. Almost. 3 days later, she called an emergency meeting. I attended, of course. About 20 folks in the clubhouse, sipping iced tea, waiting for the fireworks. Evelyn started strong. We are experiencing deliberate interference with communal assets, which may lead to fines and legal remedies. I raised my hand. You mean the unauthorized tap into my private well? Murmurs rippled. Half the room didn't even know the water source. She cleared her throat. The system benefits everyone. Your well sits on association-adjacent property. I unfolded the survey map. Actually, it doesn't. County records show the line ends here. I pointed. You can verify yourself. Someone whispered. They really hooked his well? Another voice. Is that legal? Evelyn tried to recover. Our attorney is reviewing. I cut in. County Code 42 to 305. Unauthorized utility connection is theft of service. Reports already filed. The room went quiet. Even her vice president shifted uncomfortably. The next morning, a plain envelope slid under my door. No signature, but the handwriting was hers. Proceed with legal action, and the association will pursue all available remedies for disruption. Consider your neighbors. Intimidation. Old school. But I was done playing defense. The county inspector arrived 3 days later. He took one look at the junction, followed the line to their controller, snapped photos, and whistled. This is tampering. Clear violation. They'll need your consent for any shared use. Did you give it? Not a chance. He filed the report on the spot. Evelyn watched from across the street, arms folded. When the truck left, she marched over. That was unnecessary. You've embarrassed the board. You embarrassed yourselves by stealing water. She leaned in. We could have resolved this quietly. I tried quiet. You ignored me. She turned on her heel and left. Then they dug a new trench. Buried a second line downstream of my valve. Sprinklers hummed again. My pressure dipped every cycle. I got mad, then calm. Anger burns fuel. Strategy wins wars. I spent a weekend drafting letters to the county water board, the state environmental commission, even the attorney general's office. Every document polite, time-stamped, photographed. By Monday, certified mail went out. That evening, the HOA blasted an email. Mr. Reynolds has filed baseless complaints that may result in increased dues to cover legal expenses. Please express concerns appropriately. Neighbors started looking at me sideways. Two stopped by while I was mowing. Why fight the HOA, Tom? The entrance looks nice. It's my water they're using without permission. One shrugged. It's just water. You've got plenty. She'd spun it perfectly. Me, the selfish holdout. Her, the protector of property values. So I changed tactics. Next irrigation cycle, I lifted their controller cover. Found the new line. Instead of cutting it, I installed a reverse check valve. It let water flow about 8 seconds before pressure equalized, and everything choked off. To anyone watching, it looked like a bad clog. Dawn came. Sprinklers sputtered 10 seconds, then died. My phone pinged. Evelyn, irrigation appears faulty again. We will require access to inspect the supply. I replied, You mean the stolen supply? No answer. That evening, 2 board members knocked, clipboards ready. We're here for a property inspection regarding community infrastructure. Not without a warrant. Door closed. Next morning, a $300 violation notice for non-cooperation taped to my mailbox. I laughed, then drove to the courthouse. The original report had moved forward. A clerk named Maria reviewed the file and smirked. They really did this without permission? That's theft. Want copies of the notices? I took them, taped one to their sprinkler box, mailed the other to Evelyn. 2 days later, another HOA email, tone noticeably shakier. Due to ongoing technical difficulties, community irrigation is suspended until further notice. Grass browned. Neighbors grumbled. Evelyn rented a water truck, filled from a city hydrant, and had workers hand water the greenbelt under portable lights. Expensive, but she needed to look in control. Then someone reported the hydrant misuse. A $2,000 citation slapped on the truck. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. A week later, a formal letter on heavy stationery. The association proposes a reasonable compensation agreement for shared well access. Progress. But not enough. I had a lawyer friend draft a counter. Monthly lease payment, written admission of unauthorized use, reimbursement for my electric costs. They never signed. Instead, the sprinklers went silent for good. Or so I thought. One night at 2:30 a.m. the pump kicked on. Pressure dropped. I grabbed a flashlight. The HOA line was dry. Then I saw it. A small garden hose snaking from behind my shed toward the back fence, disappearing into Evelyn's yard. Personal now. I flipped the main breaker, killed the pump, and stood in the moonlight smiling. She wanted a war. She'd get one. The next day, I bought industrial-grade plumbing parts. High-pressure gate valve, backflow regulator, manual bypass. I built a concealed reverse flow setup. Any draw from her hidden tap would pull air and mud back into her pipes instead of water. Not illegal. All on my property. First hit came that evening. I heard the groan across the street, the cough of air, the silence. 5 minutes later, her flashlight bobbed in her yard. Next morning, airlock issues persist. Irrigation offline, pending professional inspection. I nearly choked on my coffee. But the game turned ugly. One night my pump breaker tripped. I found tool marks on the control box, wires nicked. Sabotage. That ended the amusement. I replaced everything, then hid a battery camera inside the box behind a fake dust layer. 2 nights later the footage caught her. Evelyn in a dark jacket, screwdriver in hand, glancing around at 1:18 a.m. Pearl earrings glinted in the infrared. I printed a still, taped it to her mailbox with a note. Tampering with private utilities is a felony. Next time it's the sheriff. By noon the photo vanished. By evening her email. Your surveillance constitutes harassment. Remove it or face legal consequences. I ignored it. Her husband, Quiet Harold, showed up with 2 coffees. Look, Tom, she's under tremendous stress. Can we work something out? I'm reasonable. Stop the taps, reimburse my electric, admit it in writing. He nodded. I'll talk to her. He didn't get the chance. Then my truck got egged overnight. The petty stuff had gone public. I called the inspector. He chuckled. They're appealing, claiming verbal agreement. Want their filing? I did. They'd attached drone photos claiming my well sat on common ground. Drone. Of course. I borrowed a friend's drone, flew over her fence, documented her buried line in high res. Sent everything to the county with a note. Updated evidence of encroachment. Friday, an enforcement officer arrived. HOA fined $8,500 for utility tampering. Word spread. The next meeting was pandemonium. Half wanted her out. That night the camera caught Harold at the box. Not sabotaging. Just staring, shoulders slumped. I stepped out. Don't worry. Tell her it ends tonight. He nodded and walked home slowly. Things quieted. Sprinklers stayed off. No notices. Then the big storm hit. 3 days of rain. My well pit flooded, pump fried, disguised as natural damage. I replaced it, added Bluetooth monitoring, and one final touch. A relief valve diverting excess to a drum of bright blue food-grade dye. A week later the log pinged at 2:46 a.m. Morning came. Evelyn's prized St. Augustine lawn looked like a crime scene. Blue puddles everywhere, splattered on her porch, dripping from heads. Neighbors gathered, phones out. Photos hit the local Facebook group before breakfast. She stormed out in her robe, yelling at nobody. That afternoon an email from Harold's account. Please stop whatever you've done. We'll cover damages. Just end this. I replied, disconnect your lines. The color stops. That night the readings went flat. Peace. Not yet. The next agenda dropped. Motion to revoke Thomas Reynolds' membership and place lien for noncompliance. She was rewriting rules to bury me. I spent 3 days preparing. Every email, photo, invoice, citation, blue lawn proof. The meeting room was packed. Evelyn opened with drama. One resident has disrupted harmony, damaged systems, harassed leadership. I stood. May I present evidence? I passed out packets. County violation first. $8,500 fine for tampering. Murmurs. Appeal denied yesterday. Photos of her at my box at 1:18 a.m. Gasps. Those are her earrings. She banged the gavel. Fabricated. County authenticated the footage. A longtime neighbor spoke. It was necessary. He refused cooperation. I looked around. If lying, stealing, and trespassing are now community values, count me out. The vote never happened. Half the board walked out. Motion tabled indefinitely. Next morning, I filed small claims for $1,800 electric and repairs, $6,000 damages, and harassment. Public record. The group chat exploded. Audit demands. Leaks about payments to her consultant nephew. Evelyn resigned by Monday. House listed for sale. She vanished a week later. Harold said she packed the car and left. No note. I thought it was over. Then I won the HOA presidency in the next election. 78% of the vote. First act. Rewrite bylaws to require explicit consent for any shared resource. Second. New lock on the well with a plaque. Private property. Respect boundaries. I found old files. Fraud. I called a special audit. Presented everything. Room silent. One neighbor said, "Press charges." I paused. Let's give her a chance to explain first. She never did. House sold. Quiet. But victory tasted bitter. I started enforcing petty rules I'd once hated. Find a young widow for a kiddie pool in the driveway. She came to my door, eyes red. I moved here for a nice community. Not this. It hit like a slap. I avoided the notice. Then drafted a motion to dissolve the HOA entirely. Debate raged for weeks. Vote. 16-13 in favor. Willow Creek Estates ceased to exist. Funds returned. Signs removed. I hosted a final barbecue on the old greenbelt. Kids ran free. Neighbors laughed without looking over shoulders. Harold approached at sunset. She loved this place. Too much, maybe. I nodded. Power does that. Months later, the county called. Evelyn filed for partial well ownership, citing historic community use. I drove to the courthouse. Saw the affidavit. Resurrected old bylaws. I withdrew my countercomplaint. Let it sit. Then another storm. Biblical rain. Wall flooded again. In the debris against my fence, a soggy box of HOA records. Inside, a 2018 proposal for a voluntary shared well, managed by me. Attached, an old email from my abandoned account. Happy to help the community however I can. I stared. Had I casually agreed years ago? Or was it forged later to justify everything? I couldn't know. I withdrew the dispute permanently. That weekend I flushed the old HOA main line one last time. Brown water cleared to clear. Not nostalgia. Understanding. The new neighbors moved into Evelyn's house. They found boxes in the attic. Letters to me, unsent. One read, "You think control is power. It's just fear wearing a better suit." I read them on the porch, then buried the lot under the big oak on the greenbelt. Kids flew kites overhead, laughing. The county closed the case. Well remained mine alone. I stood by the pump that evening. It hummed steady. I poured a glass from the tap. Cold. Clear. Raised it to the sunset. To boundaries, I said. And for the first time in years, the neighborhood felt like home again, not because someone controlled it, but because no one did. What do you think? Was the fight worth it? Or did both sides lose something they couldn't get back? Have you ever dealt with an overreaching HOA? Or seen power turn good people into something else? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd especially like to hear where you stand on the line between standing up for yourself and letting things go too far. Sometimes justice feels right until you realize revenge and justice aren't always the same thing. Let me know your take.